Hi there, I'm Rosaline. My sister called me ugly on the biggest day of my life, my wedding, in front of 200 guests, on live stream. But that wasn't the worst part. The real betrayal? It started years before that moment. Quiet, calculated. My own mother looked away. My best friend took a check. And Marla, she didn't just mock me, she tried to erase me. Ever wonder what happens when you finally stop staying quiet? When the girl they called nothing becomes a billionaire's bride? The laughter was sharp, too sharp. It sliced through the soft music like a serrated knife, catching me off guard even though I'd already sensed she would do something. Marla stood just off stage, one hand on the mic, the other perched confidently on her hip. "Sorry for the delay, folks," she cooed, her voice as polished as her manicure. "We weren't expecting our bride to show up looking like a linen tablecloth." The crowd erupted, some in nervous chuckles, others laughing freely as if this were a roast, not a wedding. I stood motionless, bouquet tight in hand, my knuckles white. I could feel the cameras on me, and just as I inhaled to speak, she went again. "Maybe she's going for farmer's market chic. You know, fresh, local, tragic." Trina panned her phone toward me. I saw the red recording dot flash, blinking like a taunt. She was live streaming. Of course she was. A murmur spread across the rows of guests, like a wave of warm embarrassment. My groom, Dorian, stepped forward, ready to shut it all down. But I raised my hand, palm out, signaling him to stop. My eyes never left Marla's. She smirked. I spoke evenly, calmly. "Don't confuse silence with weakness." She blinked, and I saw it, just for a split second, the falter. But the crowd wasn't done yet. People were whispering, texting, some not even bothering to hide their amusement. This wasn't a wedding anymore. It was a viral moment in the making. I stepped back from the aisle and walked off stage. No tears. Not yet. I wasn't going to give her that. Back in the bridal suite, I sat down, heart still thudding like it hadn't caught up to what just happened. I picked up my phone. Trina's stream, 10,274 viewers and climbing. The top comment, "Is this real? Who let her wear that?" Then, a new email notification popped up. The sender made me pause. Leona Croy. I hadn't seen that name in 2 years, but the subject line made my stomach drop. "You need to see this. Marla planned more." I didn't open it yet, not because I was afraid of what it said, but because I already knew it wouldn't surprise me. She didn't just humiliate me on my wedding day. She rewrote my past. She curated my shame and sold it for likes. I tapped the email, jaw clenched. The message opened with 4 words that made my breath catch. "For your eyes only." The video loaded slowly. Wi-Fi always lagged when you needed it most. Then it played. Marla, full frame, calm, confident. She was sending a message to a gossip account I recognized. One that thrived on scandals with clickbait titles and private photos, leaked anonymously. She attached a screenshot. My DMV photo from when I was 22, face bare, hair fried from a bad box dye. Then another file, my old resume, back when I worked 2 jobs just to afford fabric samples. Marla's typed caption appeared on screen. "Brooklyn girl bags billionaire." Guess what she wore to their first date? The gossip post had gone up 2 days before the wedding. 500,000 views, thousands of comments. They mocked my clothes, my past, my worth, and I had no idea it was happening until now. I stared at the screen. Not a mistake, not a jealous impulse. This was a campaign, strategic, deliberate, a takedown masked as a sister's concern. There was nothing accidental about any of it. I pulled my robe tighter, walked over to the full-length mirror. My reflection looked exhausted. But there was more than sadness behind my eyes. There was calculation now. Focus. The kind you only develop when you've been burned too many times. A ding pulled me back to my phone. A new post had just gone live from an account I followed in college. Elle's handle. Her captions always had this biting, ironic tone, but this one was worse than usual. "Designer fakes marry real billionaires. Guess she fooled us all." The hashtags told the rest of the story. Hash from nothing to gold, hash bride or bribe. I opened Viola's metadata tracker, something she'd built for tracking social copy theft. The source? Elle's IP. Trina had handed her the content, bought and paid for, just like Marla had done with everyone else she couldn't control. A week before my wedding, my closest college friend sold me out for a 5-figure check and brunch clout. I scrolled through the comments. Most were laughing. Others compared my old photos to my present life like it was some reality show audition tape. My fingers hovered over the screen. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I opened our chat history, scrolled up to the message where I once sent Elle a photo of my dream wedding dress, years ago when we still believed in each other, and quietly hit delete. I looked back at the mirror, the same tired face staring at me. "You wanted a war, Marla," I whispered. "You'll get one." I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Instead, I sat by the hotel window, watching Houston's skyline blink in and out of view through the heavy clouds. The email still sat open on my tablet, but my thoughts had already slipped backward. Years, not hours. It was the afternoon before Marla's 16th birthday. I was 13, awkward, and already used to being background noise in our house. We lived in the suburbs outside Dallas then, a tidy 2-story where appearances mattered more than affection. Mom was fussing over Marla's dress, something custom and glittering, her voice high and sharp. "Rosie, just stay out of the pictures, okay? This is Marla's day." I wore a floral thrift store dress with a hem I'd stitched myself. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. When I tried to join a group photo with our cousins, Marla turned, gave me that smirk she always reserved for when Mom wasn't looking. "You're just nothing special," she said, loud enough for the others to hear. They laughed. I remember slipping away down the hallway, back against the wall, listening as Mom whispered to one of our aunts. "She needs to learn. This world isn't kind to plain girls." I wasn't crying. I just sat there, trying to understand what made me less worthy, what made my presence an inconvenience to be edited out. Now, decades later, I looked through the old photos still stored on my iPad. Every frame was carefully cropped to center Marla, her cakes, her curls, her parties. I was a shadow in most of them, or absent altogether. Delete, delete, delete. Each tap was a quiet revolution. A soft knock at the suite door pulled me from the screen. Viola stepped in, dressed in workout gear, clearly not asleep either. She didn't say anything at first, just studied my face. "I used to think," I started, "that if I stayed quiet I'd be safe. If I didn't cause trouble, I couldn't be blamed. But being invisible didn't protect me. It just made me easier to erase." Viola walked over, placed a folder on the table beside my tablet. "Then it's time to stop fading out," she said. "You need to see this." I opened the folder. It was an internal memo from Line's board, my board. Cold language hidden behind legal polish, discussing the PR risks of my public visibility. A proposal to quietly replace me as CEO before the IPO. It didn't hit me like a punch. It landed like a pattern, one I'd seen my entire life. I closed the folder. Calm. Then I guess it's time they saw who I really am. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I turned off the lights, crawled into bed, and whispered to the darkness, "No more hiding." The next evening came quickly, ushered in with champagne toasts and an orchestra that played too softly to cut the tension in the air. We gathered at the Post Oaks rooftop for the rehearsal dinner, just hours before my wedding, and still, I could feel it. The shift, the stares that lingered too long. Lorraine and Richard greeted me with courtesy laced in frost. Lorraine smiled like she was sucking on a lemon. Then, without ceremony, she pressed a rolled-up fashion magazine into my hands. A sticky note clung to the cover. "Image matters." She didn't need to say anything else. Message received. The dinner itself was civil, in that southern way that makes everything cruel sound polite. Forks clinked. Waiters floated past. The conversation tiptoed around me like I was radioactive. Richard scrolled through something on his phone, squinting, then glancing up at me. I already knew what he was reading. Viola had warned me. Marla had leaked my past to more than just gossip blogs. Someone had forwarded it to them. Halfway through the meal, Lorraine leaned in, voice soft but edged like a scalpel. "We don't mean to offend, dear, but we do expect our family name to remain untarnished." I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because reacting now would give them what they wanted. A woman too emotional to belong. They didn't know me at all. After dinner, Dorian and I stepped out onto the balcony. The Houston air was thick, pressing. The kind that makes you sweat before you speak. He touched my arm gently. They're not being fair. I'm not surprised, I said. They've been fed poison, and they drank it with wine and dessert. He didn't laugh, just looked at me with that same mix of concern and helplessness. I wasn't angry at him. He had his own battles to fight in this marriage, but this was mine. I'm not marrying them, Dorian, I said, turning to face him fully. But let's not pretend they don't matter. They're aiming at me, and I need you to understand, tomorrow I'm not walking down that aisle to prove I'm good enough. I'm walking to remind them that I built this life, on my own. He nodded, voice steady. You're not alone in this. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. I already felt something unshakable rising in my chest. When we returned to the suite, I spotted the notification on my phone almost immediately. Leona Croy has invited you to an event. Emergency meeting, 7 a.m. subject line. Operation, control the narrative. The sun hadn't even risen when I arrived at Viola's office downtown. The city was still yawning awake, but she was already 3 coffee cups in, screens glowing with surveillance files and spreadsheets that looked more like battle plans than brand data. Leona was there too, a quiet force of precision in navy blue. She handed me a timeline. Dates, times, names. Every secret meeting Marla had coordinated. Every paid post. Every leak. There were 3 red marks on the page. March 3rd, dress sabotage, done. March 7th, in-law discredit, complete. March 8th, vow ambush, scheduled. Viola didn't flinch. She's not just trashing your reputation, she's turning your wedding into a content funnel. You're her brand now. I sat down slowly, reading it again. Then we changed the frame. They looked at me. She wants to own this story? Fine. Let her build the stage. I'll choose when to set it on fire. By noon, I was back at the bridal suite. Steam from curling irons filled the air, laughter too loud from people too nervous. And then, her perfume. Marla strolled in like she'd been invited. Still time to call it off, she said. Unless you're aiming for a live meltdown. Again. I stood, adjusted my robe, and stared right at her. You've been setting fires and dancing in the smoke, Marla, but don't forget, you're holding the match over your own gasoline. She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. There was a flicker, just enough to tell me she heard me. You think you're scary now? She asked, arms folded. No, I said. I think I've been too quiet. That ends today. She didn't reply, just turned and walked out, heels clicking like war drums. As I touched up my makeup, I checked my phone. A single message from Viola. The stream starts at 4 p.m. Let them dig their own grave. I looked at my reflection in the boutique mirror, flaws and all, and smiled. An hour before the ceremony, I stepped into the dressing room alone. My gown was waiting in a sealed garment bag, exactly where Viola had said it would be. She'd confirmed everything was cleared, inspected, safe. Still, my fingers paused at the zipper. I pulled it down slowly and slipped the dress from its hanger. The fabric felt wrong, thicker, heavier. As I slipped into it, the truth tugged at my skin. The inner lining was frayed. One seam along the waist hadn't been finished at all. The cut, off-center, not my design, not even close. A stylist appeared, feigning confusion. Oh God, that's not right. Maybe it was swapped in delivery. I swear this wasn't the one I steamed. I turned slowly. Tag, I said flatly. She froze. I checked it myself. Wrong label, wrong size, not line, not mine. I stepped toward her. 3 minutes, talk or I go live, with your name on it. Her lips trembled. Please, I didn't want to. Marla said if I didn't, she'd ruin me. She knows people. She said I'd never work again. I didn't blink. And so you tried to humiliate a bride on her wedding day. Tears started falling. I'm sorry, she whispered. Save it, I said. You're not the one she really wanted broken. 10 minutes later, we were in Viola's office with the stylist holding her phone out. She hit play. Marla's voice poured through the speaker, syrupy and smug. Make sure the hem tears under pressure. Don't worry about the reaction. I want it on camera. Viola nodded once and uploaded the file to a secure drive. We stream this when the ceremony starts. No warning, just exposure. I hit send. Let her get what she wanted. A reaction. But it's going to be mine. Back at the suite, I stepped into a second gown. Sleek, flawless, my own design, the kind of dress that never needed validation. I caught my reflection again. No rage, no tears, just focus. Time to walk down that aisle, I said to Viola, and burn down everything they built on my back. The air outside the ceremony hall shimmered in late golden light. I took a deep breath, my heels clicking in quiet sync with my pulse. The whispers had already started behind the glass doors. They were expecting a bride down the aisle. I came through the side, heads turned, some stood, cameras flashed. Confusion bloomed into curiosity. My dress was a showstopper. Hand-stitched, layered silk, cut like confidence. One of a kind, one of mine. Not a single logo, and still, everyone knew it. Dorian met me at the halfway point. He leaned in, whispered, "They'll never forget this. I'm counting on it," I said. We walked together to the altar, but before the officiant could speak, I turned. Viola, seated front row with tablet in hand, gave me the nod. Mic check. Feed live. "Before I say I do," I began, "there's something you all deserve to know." The screen behind us blinked to life. Footage, headlines, messages. Then Marla's voice, play. Make sure the hem tears. Record her face. Gasps. A few screams. Someone dropped a champagne flute. I scanned the rows, landed on Marla. She didn't blink. Couldn't. "I built line when I had nothing but debt and grit," I said, steady, "and my own sister tried to turn this day into a spectacle." Text buzzed on my watch, from Viola. "Board vote in 10 minutes, they're accelerating it." I didn't flinch. "To my investors streaming this from New York or Dubai, remember, you bought stock, but I built the equity." Slide changed. Q3 numbers, brand loyalty stats, growth, headlines, recognition. In the front row, one board member stood, then another, applause. Behind them, murmurs grew louder. Marla's phone buzzed nonstop. I could almost hear it vibrate from across the room. Her face went pale. She stared at me like I'd stepped off a cliff and somehow landed on my feet. "This isn't revenge," I said, eyes locked on hers. "This is truth, and you can't bury that." The applause was still echoing when I returned to the mic. The room hadn't settled yet. Guests were still reeling, some looking down at their phones, others whispering like they weren't standing feet from the woman they'd just watched try to ruin me. I cleared my throat. To those of you in the fashion world watching this stream, this isn't drama. This is what it looks like when cruelty hides in couture. Behind me, Viola tapped the screen. A new document appeared. Signed, dated, notarized. "Effective immediately," I continued. "Line has terminated all licensing agreements with Marla Shipman Holdings. All collaborations will cease. Vendors, distributors, partners, you have 48 hours to exit." It was said plainly. No yelling, no spectacle, just the truth. Delivered like a final invoice. Viola added, "Any brand or stylist that continues affiliation with Marla will not be considered for future line campaigns." The room went still, then burst. Reporters clutched phones. Influencers started whispering. Others just walked out. Trina stared at her screen, blinking fast as her phone vibrated nonstop. "Influencer partnership revoked," one message read. "Contract terminated," said another. Marla stood, lips parting like she might respond, but no words came out. She looked around. No one made eye contact. And I didn't say a thing. I stepped back and let her silence speak louder than my voice ever could. Outside, the aftermath spread like oil on water. Stylists deleted posts. Guests whispered into phones, walked faster to avoid cameras. Marla's assistant was nowhere to be seen. Trina, red-faced and rattled, tried flagging down a rideshare while clutching a designer purse like a lifeline. Then came the press. "Marla, is line pulling out of your salons? Do you have a statement? What would you say to brides you've styled?" She didn't answer, just shoved past, ducked into a black SUV and slammed the door. Her phone buzzed again. "Investor group withdrawal, effective now." I watched it all from the second-floor window. The same place she once stood, laughing at a dress she made me hate. Now she couldn't even hide behind tinted glass. Dorian appeared beside me. "Feel better?" I thought about it. "No, just lighter. I didn't need revenge. I just needed her to stop." And then my phone rang. Unknown number. But I knew the voice before she even said hello. The call came just after sunrise. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. One missed call, one voicemail. I didn't recognize the number, but I didn't need to. I tapped play. Rosaline, I didn't know it had gone that far. My mother's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. I was wrong to stay quiet. I was trying to keep peace, but I didn't realize I was letting you bleed for it. I sat up, covers falling to my lap. Her voice sounded older than I remembered. Tired. Ashamed. The phone rang again. Same number. This time I answered. She didn't start with hello. She's my daughter too, she said. But I should have protected you more. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just breathed in and said, I was your daughter too, and you chose not to see me. There was a long silence. Then the sound of her crying. Not performative sobs, not for effect. Just soft, broken grief. She apologized again and again. I let her speak, and when she finished, I didn't offer comfort. I simply said, I hear you, and hung up. It wasn't closure, but it was the end of a hallway I'd been walking down blind for years. That evening, I took a walk with Dorian down by the lake behind the estate. The sun dipped low, painting the water gold. It was never about beating her, was it? He asked. I shook my head. It was about being seen, through my lens, not hers. He stopped walking and gently cupped my face. You've always been enough. The wind caught my veil, a symbolic one now, metaphorical and light. I looked ahead. From now on, I walk my name, not hers, not anyone's. Later, I sat alone on the balcony, scrolling through the stream's replay. The top comment made me stop. She didn't just wear the gown, she owned the room. I didn't respond. I bookmarked it. Viola texted, Press wants a statement. I typed back, let's give them one they can't twist. I opened a fresh post and wrote, this isn't revenge, this is release, and it's mine. Not every family story ends in reunion. Some endings just give you your peace, and sometimes that's more than enough. Before the screen fades, if you're still watching, thank you. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Silence doesn't make you safer. It just makes you invisible. For years, I let people decide my worth based on how I looked, where I came from, or how loud I wasn't. But respect, that's not something you beg for. It's something you build, brick by brick, until it stands taller than their gossip, louder than their mockery. I didn't win by destroying anyone. I won by showing up as myself and refusing to leave. So if you've ever been made to feel like you were too much or not enough, just know you're not alone, and you don't have to shrink to fit inside their comfort. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family or friends who tried to write your story for you? What would you have done in my shoes? Or, what are you still afraid to say out loud? Let's talk in the comments. I'll be reading. And hey, if this story moved you, even just a little, tap that like button and drop a #1 in the comments to let me know you're here. Tell me what city you're watching from. I'd love to know where this message landed. If it didn't speak to you, that's okay too. Tell me why. Let's grow together. And if you want more stories that cut deep, heal slow, and say what needs to be said, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what's next. Your voice matters here. Thanks for listening.